Welcome, friends, once again to the Wormhole Manifest podcast. This episode's special guest is my scientist friend, Lisa, who works in the molecular biology field with antibodies and vaccines, and who is just an all-around wonderful human being. We spend a good portion of the episode just catching up and hearing of some of the events over the last year since she was last on this show. Even though the episode is rather long, we still somehow managed to get rudely cut off near the end when my internet service provider decided to cut me off with some scheduled routine maintenance that they failed to inform me about. Regardless of that, it was still a great discussion and I learned a lot of interesting things. One thing I'd like to mention is that in no way am I a medical professional. So, just as a disclaimer, any of the things I talk about on this show that may sound like advice or recommendations are not, and I strongly encourage you to consult your doctor or physician before attempting any of the things I mentioned. So don't try this at home, kids. Your physical and mental health is important, and you should not take any risks without first consulting a professional. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and now enjoy the show. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Wormhole Manifest podcast, and we are back at it again. I know there was kind of a long break there since the last episode was put out, but thanks for bearing with me. We're just going to jump right into it. Today, once again, I have my friend Lisa on here, who's you're a molecular biologist, correct?
Yeah.
And our last episode that you were on here, we were talking all about like what you did and stuff. But I'm just glad to have you back and try to get this train rolling with a podcast that has been kind of defunct the past couple months, but just been kind of working on some different areas and working on some more music stuff and for intros and commercials and whatnot. But you said you were ready to. I invited you back a couple months ago or several months ago, and then all kinds of stuff happened. It seemed like like you had construction going on a house, and and you got sick, I think, too, in there. So so let's hear from you. What's been going on? Like, are you feeling better? Hopefully.
Yeah, better. So yeah, it was just a lot of stuff happening all at once. Like I think soon after we initially recorded, I had COVID in May. I think we recorded before that, but I'm not sure. But then like my car broke down.
I think so, yeah.
And then in the summer, there was
geez.
this huge leak because I live in a 3-story building and I'm on the first floor. So there was this huge leak from my upstairs neighbor that caused like construction for like a month and a half. And so I couldn't record because they had all these dehumidifiers and stuff. And like, there was no way you'd be able to hear me. Like it was just so loud. And then that took like way longer to fix than anticipated. And just like things one after another kept happening. But, things are slowing down finally.
Well, that's good. You were, let's see, I there was something I wanted to bring up. So you said you did get COVID, and we were talking about it on the previous episode about the vaccines and everything. And I'm sure as well as I do and anybody else that there's just so much conflicting info about, you have all the anti-vax people and you have like the people thinking that the vaccines are this experimental jab, and it's like, but you've worked in this field and about like the RNA and the stuff that goes into all these things and like the research and whatnot. And it's like, were you caught off guard at all? Because you're vaccinated, correct? Like, and have like boosters. We talked about that offline and about, I still haven't gotten the boosters, but like I've gotten the first initial shots of the Pfizer,
Mhm.
and my wife got the Moderna,
Mhm.
um, and she's kind of sick now, but I don't think it's COVID. She's just had like a chest congestion
Mhm.
thing that I've heard is symptoms of COVID, but like she hasn't been like, you know, bleeding lungs or anything
Mhm. Yeah,
weird or
yeah.
crazy or, like, but yeah, like, so, but you're pretty active and have a big social life, don't you? Like you're like
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there and
Mhm.
but was it still surprising when you like tested positive or anything?
Um, so I would say it wasn't that surprising aside from the fact that was I thought I was being pretty careful, and I probably was, but that still doesn't guarantee you anything. But when I did
Right,
get
right.
COVID at the time, it was the rates were really high. I was doing a
Mm,
lot of activities that had indoor settings with lots of people. I would always mask, but like it was still a high risk place.
yeah.
So despite, my best efforts, I caught COVID, and I would say I wasn't really surprised because at that point, almost I would say 70% of the people that I'm closely acquainted with had COVID, like within that past couple weeks. It's just, I
Oh,
dance
wow.
at a studio, and at the time I was on a dance team, and so tons of people on my team had COVID. So all things considered, I was not really
Mm,
surprised. It was kind of like inevitability, and at that time, because this would have been May of 2022, so I went a pretty long time avoiding it. Um, and I
yeah.
had, let's see, I had gotten the first 2 shots already, and I had one booster at that point. So
Mm.
yeah, so it was kind of like a matter of time
Do you
thing.
think do you think the vaccines helped as far as like the like what am I? I'm searching for a cool sounding word, but my brain is like, just say vaccine. Like um, the symptoms. Do you think it helped with the symptoms? Like made them not as bad as they could have been? Like had you
Mhm.
not like depending on. I guess everybody is so different, and
Yeah.
our whole biological chemical makeup of each individual person and our what we're our immunities to everything is can be different too.
Mhm.
So it's just like I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean,
Um,
overall, I would say
do you
that,
think it helped?
yeah, I mean, it's not possible for me to say definitively, right? Because I didn't have the other experience. But knowing what we know about like the vaccine's effectiveness, it's very, very likely that it would minimize the symptoms for everybody, including myself. And when I got COVID,
Minimize. There's a
yeah,
good
yeah.
word. See, you're
And
smart.
so when I got COVID, actually, it was pretty rough. Like initially, the first day, I was really, really struggling. I had like really bad chest pains, and I like couldn't breathe through my
Hmm.
nose at all. And so it was mostly like the sinus kind of symptoms, but my throat was like hurting like I've never had before. Um, but then within maybe 2 days, like by day three, all of my symptoms were gone. So the way I viewed that
Oh wow.
is that, and then also I talked to my cousin at the time who had gotten COVID maybe about a month before, um, or maybe not a month before, but he had caught COVID before he got vaccinated. And so it was
Oh.
either before he got the second shot or the booster or something, but he was not like, he didn't have the chance to gain full immunity yet. And so I was talking to him about my symptoms when I got COVID. And I'm like, yeah, they were really bad for like 2 days. And then he's like, oh, that sounds exactly like how my symptoms were, except they lasted 8 days. And so, that's not saying that that's
Hmm.
like
Wow.
definitive, but I kind of took that as like, oh, that's the
Right.
sort of difference that you could get from the vaccine because, and it makes sense from like an immunological standpoint because if you're vaccinated, it means your body's already primed to fight the infection. So you would assume that that means it would start to clear that out faster than if you didn't have those antibodies and stuff. So in that sense, like, yeah, I'm definitely grateful that I was able to even get the booster too. And we have
Hmm.
done tests like in our lab to determine like how effective the antibodies were after certain numbers of time. And it's pretty clear that getting the booster does improve your protection. So if it's been a certain amount of time, like getting boosted definitely re-ups that protection for you. So I would say anecdotally and pretty like good clinical evidence that it helps.
Now, does the booster kind of like, does it essentially boost what is already existing in your system, like with the like the current, like let's say I got the initial two shots, the part one and part two, Pfizer, almost 2 years ago. Is that still like floating around in there? So even if I went today, like let's say I went to the pharmacy and said, "Hey, give me a booster," would that like kind of reactivate what's already in there a little bit or something like that? I mean, I don't know the the
Yeah.
terms for
So yeah,
what
it's
the molecules are all doing in the blood cells and everything.
yeah,
So
yeah. So the best way to think about it, so you know how we have all of these variants, right? Like we have the original COVID strain, and then from there we've had all of these mutations in different variants. And the best way to think about all of them in relation to each other is that they all share the base structure. They're the base, like the majority of the molecular structure is the same. It's one piece. And then there are all of these
kind of like
little
the base code
Mhm.
of an operating system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are these additional pieces that are maybe within or sticking out or whatever. But there are other smaller parts that change and mutate. And that's what determines the different variants.
Mm.
It's just these other small parts. It's kind of like how, they say that human DNA is like 99.9% the same for everybody, and it's mostly just like nonsense stuff that doesn't really do anything. And then it's that 1% of our genetic material that determines like all of the stuff about us. It's kind of like that. And so when we got the initial vaccine, it was made against the initial virus. And
Mm.
as these variants came along, they share the same, they all share pretty much the same base, right? So when you get a booster, even though it might not be specifically made for a new variant, because the base is still the same, um, your like body's ability to recognize that is still there. So when you get a booster, it does re-up like your protection against the original strain. And
Hmm.
and so from here it gets pretty complicated, but I guess the simplest way to put it is that um, so because that base part is like the same for most of the variants, even if your body only knew about the original strain, it's still going to give you some protection against the variants because of that similarity of the base structure. So it might not be as good. Your body might miss it here and
Yeah.
there because it's slightly different, but if it's similar enough in the relevant places, then you'll still have immunity against those variants. So with like the first
Oh.
booster, I think the first booster was still the original strain. The most recent booster is the one they call the bivalent booster, and it's basically it has it targets two different variants, and they just kind of mixed it together. So
Oh wow.
yeah, it's pretty complicated stuff,
And
but yeah, that's
in a
how it
way,
works.
it kind of sounds like to me, like with me as a, your friendly neighborhood computer repairman, it sounds basically like when Microsoft says Windows needs an update, and now that the latest Windows operating systems have security and antivirus and all this stuff built in, like it's better, it's highly recommended and suggested that when you are using a computer every single day, depending on if you're using it at home or at work, if you're at work in a big company or something, they have an IT department that when everybody goes home for the day, they automatically push out Windows updates and security patches to everyone's systems, everybody's computers. That's why they always say, like, leave your computer on, just make sure you log off so nobody can come in and log in as you, or whatever, for a security thing. But like, to prevent security breaches and whatnot, depending on where you work. But even if you're at home and and Windows has a little pop-up and it says like, hey, there's an update ready, you need to do that update. Like, I try to tell people this day in, day out, that like, whenever it says to do an update, if you're not doing anything important right that minute, like, go ahead and do that, because basically what that means to me in my eyes is that someone had made a security breach out there, or some kind of hack, is going around, or a virus that is going around the networks and infecting people's computers. So Microsoft has created a new security patch and is pushing it out to all the systems to prevent people from potentially losing data or getting hacked, or various other things. But it's like, got to keep it updated, because otherwise you're vulnerable,
Yeah.
And so it sounds kind of like the same thing, to put that in that weird analogy of, I guess, IT versus, and we basically are computers. We're walking around, just blood and water and with bones, or organic computers is what we are anyway.
Definitely.
So like, I think there's a lot of similarities there between them. So, so yeah, it's very interesting. I guess an effort to not to have the whole episode be about COVID. There's been enough of those podcasts out there.
Yeah. The situation is so different from a year ago.
Is there anything else?
Too, so.
Yeah, lots of things have changed.
Is there anything?
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's the whole thing about the living through a global pandemic is just that, it's like anything. Like, if you live through like a natural disaster, there's all kinds of stuff like that. And like, there's a war going on right now, like over in Ukraine. It's just, there's, how many wars do I have to live through in my time, and I'm sure people older than me who went through like Vietnam and all these other things. It's like, when are we going to figure it out that we don't need to be doing these kinds of things? But I guess it just depends on who's in power and what the agenda is and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the world is crazy.
I kind of felt like,
but anyway,
when like the pandemic started, it was like, oh, everything else that's bad in the world is on pause. And then once the pandemic's over, like, we'll figure it out. But then it's like, nope, wars like kept happening. And then, things just went along. And it kind of like, it felt like a new timeline, like the COVID timeline. So.
Yeah.
But
and I've heard some other conspiracy theories out there about how we're like heading towards like a like this huge global reset kind of thing, and it's like,
for sure.
I've been watching all these other shows. I mean, of course, everybody that knows me knows I watch like Ancient Aliens like religiously, but I don't get into it. I watch it because the narrator's voice is decent. And they're constantly showing pictures of cool places I want to go. I'm like, oh, that place looks cool. And then there was this other show recently on Netflix, the Ancient Apocalypse. And this guy is not a scientist or anything, but he's a journalist, and he's researching. He's saying that way before what we think of any kind of knowledgeable civilization, there was a previous civilization, an ancient civilization that had reached. Yeah, but it shows all these really cool places every episode. There's only like 6 episodes, but like every place this guy goes is a place that I'm like, I want to go there, but like, I don't want to just go there. I want to like do stuff. Like all the things that they talk about in the show about like, let's dig down into here. And I bet there's all kinds of cool shit that we can find out about these past civilizations if we just were able to excavate all this, but they're like barred from doing any of that. So it's like, why? What is, I wish I was just like a one of these rich guys that can just do whatever they want. I'd be like out there digging up, these different places and walking around all these tunnels and like Darren Kuyu in Turkey and
like looking for Atlantis in the ocean. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is just amazing, and it's intriguing to just kind of disappear for a little while, from what is actually going on right around us, and then just kind of say this would be cool to like at least go see, like Peru or some of these ruins and things like that,
Yeah.
and travel around and see that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, I was
well,
telling
I
you
had a
that
point to all that.
well, I was telling you that I had recently gotten into the Knowledge Fight podcast, which is, I would say, a similar
Mm.
realm of like, they, I guess, to put it nicely, fact check Alex Jones. And it's fun because Alex Jones does not live in our reality. So it's definitely escapism in a way. I do have to kind of take some breaks sometimes because he is pretty like ooh, bigoted and stuff. So it gets a little dark sometimes, but it is for sure escapism. So, um, and it's kind of my first intro into
Yeah, yeah.
that realm of conspiracy theorists. I knew a lot about Q, and he's definitely like QAnon adjacent, but like way crazier.
And is he like full on like pro Trumper and all that stuff, or like is that just what I'm hearing from different news outlets? Like,
So
because
yeah.
I try not to consume all the mainstream media, and I
Mhm.
really don't. I don't keep up with hardly anything except
Yeah, me
for,
neither.
maybe I watch NBC. I have NBC playing all day in the background when I'm doing my computer repairs and stuff, but like I don't really pay attention. It's just like background noise.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I can't take it anymore, so I flip on an anime I've seen 100 times.
Mhm.
So like I'm just like have it playing in the background. But every once in a while I'll see that Alex Jones guy, and then they'll be like, "Oh, this he's trying to push this new kind of like conspiracy theory or something," or
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Even on Twitter, I'll see like little memes about him and stuff.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I'll
what have you
say
learned from the podcast?
really interesting that you brought both of those up because the host of the podcast, he listens to basically every single episode of InfoWars. And one some of the points that he makes is one is that the mainstream media is really, really bad at covering Alex Jones. Not accuracy
Mm,
wise, but the light that they paint him in and also what they decide to emphasize. It's just it only makes him stronger. And like what they mean is that
mm,
he so a lot of his persona is the perception of being attacked, the victim, and the persecuted one. And so when mainstream media chooses to like write certain stories about him or whatever, he's really good at turning negative coverage into like good for him. Um,
mm,
in that way, he's super talented as like a propagandist. And then the other thing is about, a lot of people, every once in a while, he does become a meme. And that's a lot of people's understanding or like introduction to Alex Jones because he says some crazy shit, like really insane stuff that is often very, very funny. So he, becomes a meme every once in a while. And in the same way, that's kind of like what he's trying to do constantly because those
mm,
memes, even though most people are viewing them in like we're laughing at you, it still brings people into his circle. It still grows his audience. So it's not to say that like oh we should just ignore him, but it's more about like how people are viewing him based on these things because the reality is like even though he's a super crazy like he says some funny ridiculous stuff like he's the the water is turning your frogs gay guy um, but he says stuff that's like objectively really funny but the reality is that he is a compulsive liar and his entire living is made on like making his audience members so afraid and so paranoid so that they will buy his products. That's ultimately what it all comes down to, is he has all of these InfoWars branded products that are supposed to be like, for survival and like that kind of thing. Think of your like typical
Oh,
anti-vaxxer.
wow.
It's like stuff that they would want, oh, take this whatever vitamin mixtures and you don't need to get vaccinated, that kind of stuff. So his entire living is made on scaring people, and the way he does that is with these insane lies. So when you when it's put that way, it's like he's
Hmm.
super dangerous, even though it's
Yeah.
still really, really funny. Um, and it works. And like the main thing I would say to look at is the Sandy Hook stuff. I mean, he like had
Right.
some of those
Yeah.
parents were really, really getting harassed, and to the point where like it would have been dangerous for them. He has inspired like the Pizzagate guy who like ended up going to that pizza parlor and shooting it. Like he specifically said that he got his information from InfoWars. So, it's kind of like
Wow.
we should be understanding that side of him. Like the whole thing with like, oh, the water is turning, your
Hmm.
frog's gay, objectively sounds really funny, but it's not as funny when you think about his audience, which are very paranoid people. A lot of them are very, very hyper religious. And so he was
Hmm.
saying that in the context of like, you shouldn't drink your city's water because your city is trying to kill you, you know? So it's like, oh, it's not so funny when you think about that context. And that context is often what's missing when the
Yeah.
mainstream media covers him.
I think that's something that's happened, like that exact scenario with him and what's going on, is what potentially makes people really dangerous all around. Like when people are so confident in themselves to be able to tell these lies and get people to, into that circle, like you said, and start pushing these ideas, like that is really where it does get dangerous. Because if you have people run around shooting pizza parlors and everything like that, it's that you just don't want that. And I'm looking here now, and I guess like he's filing bankruptcy or something like that because of the that whole thing. I guess with
The Sandy Hook
he was
trials.
supposed to, didn't he get Sandy Hook trials? Yeah, and then like he's now going to file bankruptcy, and it said something like he wants to get like a $520,000 a year in a new bankruptcy plan, and like all this crazy stuff. I'm like, the I'm gonna step back a few take a few steps back and say that like everything you just said about him, about being funny, and it seems like it is kind of like one of those uh, um, what's the term I'm looking for, where somebody is so they can say whatever, like all these lies, make stuff up, but they're so like confident in it that they'll get people like all riled up. That shock factor, I guess, like the shock factor of whatever. In that essence, I would say that he's not very different than some of my own family members that have um, been the same way. Like, I mean, I have a sister that is, I don't know if she's ever been diagnosed with like schizophrenia or what the deal is there. I don't have any solid evidence on anything. But I just know, like you said, that Alex Jones, that she's a compulsive liar, but she has developed this whole like kind of cure for what's the you get bit by a mosquito, you get the potentially you get, what's that disease, Lyme's disease, I think it was.
Okay.
So she created this cure by basically like taking these live bees and administering stings to yourself,
I've seen
kind of
that.
thing. And
Yeah.
it's like a holistic kind of thing. Well, like she is making money off of this and like touring the country in like this bus, and it's like her bee bus, and going around and talking to all these people. She's been on I think on podcasts and maybe even like some maybe smaller like news interviews and TV and stuff, and it's just like I don't know what to say, you know, and I know that these kind of ideas, because I used to, like, everybody that knows me from when I was a teenager up through the military, young in my 20s and stuff like that, I was kind of that shock factor kind of person too. Like, I used to say a lot of weird, wild, crazy stuff just to get that reaction, but like I didn't believe it, you know, like, and I wasn't trying to get anybody else to believe the things. Like, I used to go around and tell people I was like, I didn't tell them, but I would hint around the fact that I wasn't human, that I was actually an extraterrestrial. So, but like, it was just like a weird, stupid little like game that I was playing. And like, you know, some of my friends, they were just like, ah, don't listen to him. He's just an alien. He don't know anything about, you know, like, and it was just funny. And I don't know. I was just having fun with it. I wasn't trying to convince people that there was a bunch of conspiracies going on in the world. You know what I mean?
Now
So
take
like,
that,
that's what I
take your
think is
whole thing where
funny.
you're like joking about being an alien, and now imagine that you're serious about it. And that's sort of Alex Jones, because he does talk a lot about some sci-fi crap that he definitely is pushing as real. So that's really
It's
funny.
almost like
In another life, you
I
could have
watched a
been
documentary
Alex
about.
Jones.
I could have. I could be a millionaire right
I
now. I
know,
could be
right?
getting sued for
Mhm.
telling people that, you know, there wasn't a mass shooting.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
like, it
yeah.
just. I could be getting $520,000 a year in a new bankruptcy plan. You know, it's like,
I would
what
be
the fuck? What
surprised
was I
if they
doing? What
grant
am I
that to him.
thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, that's so
geez.
funny. Um, yeah, so
So,
that's
so the podcast you're listening, they listen to every episode and then they kind of go behind it. Is that what, and do like fact checking and stuff?
yeah, so there's two
Is it?
hosts, and the main host, he has uh listened to Alex Jones, like not believing him, but kind of like for fun for a long time. And so he decided to start this podcast.
And we need people like that.
Yeah, yeah. And so he decided to start the podcast when I believe it was when Trump was elected, and it kind of became clear that Alex Jones had a lot to do with that. So he
Oh, huh.
listens to every episode, and then his co-host doesn't and has never really listened to him at all. So then in each episode, the main host will kind of break down the episode
Ah.
that he had listened to, cut out clips so that you actually get to hear the actual footage or the actual audio. And then he'll be like, okay, yeah, what he just said there is a total lie, or he'll be like, oh, this is actually something that's a really big talking point in white supremacist circles. In case you didn't know, like, he's just very critically analyzing the stuff that Alex Jones and his guests say. But a lot of it's
And so
also
the
really
other guy
funny.
hasn't
Yeah.
heard. So the other guy hasn't heard any of this stuff. So he's
Mm-mm.
playing it for him.
Yeah.
Like, is it also like, is it capturing the person who doesn't know much about that, like their like reaction
Yep.
to these little clips and stories?
And a lot
Oh,
of it
okay.
is
So
yelling.
that's
A lot of it is yelling. Yeah, he's just yelling like,
what's the
yeah.
name of that?
It's called Knowledge Fight.
What's the name of
So
that pod again? Okay,
Knowledge Fight,
I'll
yeah,
give them
instead
a
of
shout out.
InfoWars. But yeah,
No, that's right.
it's going on, 2017 was like the first episode, and I think they released maybe like a couple episodes a week or so, but I mean, you saw there's like 700 something episodes
Yeah,
now, and
yeah.
each
You
one
told me
is
about it and looked it up on Spotify, and I was like, whoa.
mhm. And I think so far the longest episode that I listened to was like uh catching up to 4 hours. So it's not like a short 700
Oh,
episodes. Yeah, a lot of them are like 2 plus
oh man,
hours. Yeah. It's a lot of lying. So, like a lot.
there's a lot to cover.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was a couple weeks ago, maybe I watched a documentary on the damn it, the Scientologists and that whole
Mhm.
group, the
Mhm.
Scientology things, and there was a lot that I didn't know about that, and so I was just kind of like wanting to see what I mean. I knew all the other stuff I've heard on online, you know, like Tom
Mhm.
Cruise is like a top officer in that church or whatever, and
Yeah.
then I knew that it was uh, formed by L. Ron Hubbard, who was, a science fiction novelist and author and all that, but I was like, I wanted to see where it was like today, like how is it lasted? And it's like, I think overall what I got out of it was that pretty much anybody can kind of start their own religion depending on, I don't know. It just, there's so much like manipulation and all these different things that like I myself, and even with the stuff I was telling you before that I used to have fun with, and I used to act crazy and wild and tell people I was an alien or whatever. Another one was I was immortal, kind of like the Highlander, like I was like, I'm not worried about this. I'm not scared of anything because I can't die,
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous stuff. But like the thing is like, I don't have the time, like I don't have, it's not that I don't have the time to put together my own religion or my own cult or whatever it is like that. But like, I'm not that motivated, it's like, I can barely record a podcast episode every month, like it's, or like, I'm more interested in sitting down, with my wife and watching through A Handmaid's Tale or Resident Alien or the new Picard, like I want to see stuff. And it's like, I'm a chill guy. I just want to chill and I want to find a way to make more money so that I can do fun things like travel the world and, go to all those cool places they show on Ancient Aliens. But like, I don't have the motivation that some of these people, like obviously Alex Jones has that motivation to constantly think up shit to spew out and latch on to other stuff that he hears and build up things from it. And it's like, I can't do that, man.
Yeah.
Like I don't see how people can do that.
I would say probably with people like him or, cult leaders and stuff, I would imagine that they've got a lot of motivation from either money or like abusing people in whatever way that might be. There's always been some kind of like something that ends up being worth it, quote unquote, for them. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard seemed like he was a genuinely crazy person also, but I think that would make it a lot easier to want to like keep doing it if you were getting paid.
I never read the books, but I saw one of the movies. I saw one of the movies based on one of his books, I guess, and I was just like, "This isn't even that good."
I heard he's
sci-fi.
I heard he's a bad writer.
It just didn't. Yeah. The movie was nothing.
Well, because L. Ron Hubbard was
this is definitely not
inspired by someone else, right? Or no? Am I thinking of something else? I don't know. I've heard that his
I'm trying to think.
There's another sci-fi
I want to say you're right. There was something else.
Yeah, I'll look this up. Because it's like what he based Scientology on. Who was that again?
And it wasn't like sometimes I always want to say Aleister Crowley and things like that, but I don't think it was that. I don't know what his inspiration was. Oh, the Dianetics, I think was the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard of that.
His philosophy. But yeah, I don't know what his. They mentioned it in the.
Oh yeah, Dianetics, the modern science of mental health.
There was a.
Okay. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page.
But yeah, that's what I pulled up too. The crazy thing about that documentary was that it was showing the training, because they had this person who used to be like he was like a, what's that word when you leave a religion or something like that, you become an
I know what word you're saying, but I don't know how you say it.
Apostate or something like that. Apostate or something like that. Anyway, you've left that group or cult or whatever, and you're like have sworn against it, and you're not going to return. And so they kick you out and they banish you basically. And so they took this guy who used to be kind of a higher up member of that, and he used to be in charge of like all the training of the new recruits or whatever. And they were going through these play scenarios that they had reenactments. They created these like movie style reenactments they even hired actors to portray like Tom Cruise. They had these budding new actors who are actually people that are there in Hollywood trying to audition for different jobs and parts and stuff. They found a guy who could talk and do the mannerisms just like Tom Cruise, and they hired him to do these different scenes for the documentary, and it was great. And I was like, oh man, that's cool that guy got that part.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I hope that he goes on to do something else, and that's not his only thing he can do. Like, or he gets labeled as like he's that Tom Cruise wannabe kind of. But yeah, but the training and stuff was, I mean, it's just completely psychotic. Like it's not even really a training. It is like it's manipulating these people into basically becoming something that they're not, like organically, like, and it's, and I can say that I can kind of relate in a way to that, because I, as being trained by military, you go through a lot of rigid training, like in the Marine Corps, in boot camp and stuff like that. I went through a lot of training, but like, I never felt once during that they were trying to really, I mean, they were kind of trying to break you down as a person and build you back up into something else that can do everything that they're told. But like, I had this part in the back of my brain that was just kind of like sitting idle, and recording everything that was going on around me. And the other part of my brain was like, just do this to get by, act like this for now, put this mask on and pretend like you're part of this. And everything down to the motivation, like it was pretend motivation. Like it was just like a survival technique, to get through it so that I can, get on with my life afterwards. And it was like, once I was completely out of that environment, it was easy for, not completely easy. There was some hangups and some PTSD and whatever, but like there was enough there of my old self to kind of, say, you remember this, you remember this guy, you remember who you used to be, and like the stuff you liked and all that, take what you've learned and were trained to do here and kind of just, take what's good from it and just add it to your base system, kind of like the operating system. I was built with a base code, and then I added all these other cool features and add-ons, like you get upgrades in a video game, like that was basically that. But, it did take a while, but now I'm kind of like, wow, I'm not that conservative type of person that I was pretending I was around all those other people that were really conservative, and they've noticed it. Like friends have unfriended me on Facebook because they're like, you're way too liberal for me. It's like,
people change.
Sorry, that's just who I am. I'm not claiming I'm liberal. I'm just claiming that I am who I am. And I've always been this way. You may have just not seen that person, who that was, but yeah. Did you see anything about like what he was based on, what that L. Ron Hubbard was, inspiration? Cause now I'm curious. He was inspired by pulp fiction magazines from the 1930s.
I mean, let me see.
But I don't know.
I don't know. I have to read through this. But one thing I do know is I have heard that he's not that good of a writer. So I don't know. And he was, he had his assortment of problems too, clearly. So, I mean, the Church of Scientology is abusive, I think. It's pretty clear. So,
yeah. It's almost, it's abusive. And it's that level of like toxicity that we're seeing that is being like called out in all areas ever since Trump was elected, and it's like, that whole thing. I was thinking about this the other day or yesterday. I think I was driving around and I was doing some things, and I was thinking like, one good thing I think that happened or has taken place because of that election in 2016 is that it has, I'm always hearing people talking about the word woke in like a negative context. And I've questioned that. I've like, why is being aware of things negative, and I've heard different ways of describing that. But the thing that I just thought of yesterday was that the the good thing about that has taken place is that we are more aware now that there are still that there is still racism and bigotry and the patriarchy and all these things exist in our country and are well and alive and breathing today. And it's those things that I think for the longest time I just didn't pay attention to. And me as like a white male, it didn't slap me in the face because it was like, especially because my wife kind of has helped me see through a lot of those things and realize that a lot of the shit that I used to do when I was younger and stuff was just not okay, and it's never been okay. And the things that I talk about with my other friends that are of different cultures and ethnicities and all this stuff, they're like, yeah, it's always been there, but it's like my white privilege has just kind of blocked me, put these blinders on. So like now that I see it every time I look around, if I'm in the grocery store, I see people behaving in different ways and I'm like, that's toxic as fuck, man. Like, what are you doing? And it's like, I gotta like, I need to call it out as I see it, and it's like, and I think that's that awareness. That's that being woke, as people want to say is negative, that I don't see as a negative because it's helping me. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie They Live. Mm-mm. It's like an older 80s sci-fi with the WWF wrestler Roddy Piper. And it also had another guy in it. But basically the whole thing was that if you put these special sunglasses on, you can see these people are not people, they're aliens. Mm-hmm. And he was like putting us on. He was like, holy fuck, we've been invaded and these aliens have been around us for years, like this whole time. And we just didn't, that's how I feel. I'm walking around and I'm like, I can see you. I see you, motherfucker. Like you are toxic as fuck and you have not grown and evolved outside of things that we ignored for so long, for the last couple decades. And it's just like,
that's kind of like
so
that.
Where's the bad thing? Like,
I mean, you're totally right. I think it's kind of the same thing about how context matters because, like, I think before Trump, like you said, there's people who are racist and bigoted and stuff, and they still live amongst us. But it was kind of like, yo, keep that to yourself. Don't be that out in public. It was frowned upon to be openly racist and openly neo-Nazi and stuff.
Right.
And then when Trump was elected, it was kind of like, you could be a little racist. It's fine. And so then they were.
Yeah.
And then, and so like from my point of view or my perspective, a lot of stuff that was considered woke or things that we called like microaggressions, for example, before Trump, it was really hard to understand those kinds of nuanced things unless you were a victim of them. And I don't really like to use the word victim, but unless you were somebody who had experienced that happen to you, because those are like very subtle ways that put you down. But then when people started to kind of openly be racist and bigoted and sexist again, I guess, that context was like bright for everybody to see, and so I think, a lot of people maybe who would see a behavior before and be like, you're overreacting. They kind of see why it's not an overreaction. Actually, maybe it seems like that because it's never targeted at you. But now that you see how how harshly people are targeted, that context is there. So I guess that is in essence the woke thing, right? Like you've woken up to these microaggressions and these little ways that people are still trying to exert their power over people that they don't like or that they look down upon. So it kind of sucks that it had to come to that. But it's just
exactly, and it sucks to all of a sudden realize that these things that were always there and that I had learned about, like are almost they're not like any more prevalent, but I think the good thing, and I've heard other friends say this. I've um, I'm always hesitant to say, but like I've had friends say that like I would rather have someone be openly racist because then you know who to stay away from.
Mm.
And it's like, that's valid. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And before though, like during like Obama administration and even years before that, with Bush and all this stuff, like it, like you said, it was like, it was just wasn't okay. You had to kind of keep those things on the down low in your own little personal bubble, to like, and not go out and try to, but ever since Trump, it's like all those people are coming out of the woodwork and voicing their opinions. And like you said, like, and being extra like belligerent with their microaggressions and all this stuff. Like, oh yeah, like my president said it was okay, so now I can be myself again. It's like they're all coming out, but it's like, and yeah, okay, come on out, show me who you are. Let me put my glasses on so I can see who you are. You see the true colors, and that's, it sucks in a way because I don't want to see that, but at the same time, it's like, just like my friends who look different than me, like I would rather know because I can stick with my friends that I know are good people, and not worry about getting caught up in any of these other groups that, are displaying those kinds of behaviors.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah,
okay.
I can like agree with that sentiment in a lot of ways where somebody who's like overtly bigoted is a lot in some ways easier to deal with, because everybody's pretty much on the same page that like that's not okay. But when somebody is maybe more I don't know, has that like educated but condescending way of being bigoted,
Oh yeah.
those are the kinds of people who it's like, they might say something to you that is bigoted, but people might say that you're overreacting or something. So it's like, yeah, in a way, I'd
Yeah.
rather you just
And
like straight up be sexist or be racist towards me, and then we could just kick you out instead of me trying to like justify the things that you said that hurt me or whatever. But um, I
yeah,
also think
instead of trying to
people,
like gaslight you
yeah,
behind the scenes,
I think people like that are rare because ultimately we're describing like a sociopath or a psychopath, somebody who's like intentionally trying to cause harm on you without, in a manipulative way. But from my experience, most people who have that sort of um, kind of prejudice or whatever, it's really just coming from a place of ignorance. And, they
Mhm.
they have been taught certain things about certain people growing up, and it's not necessarily coming from a place of hatred or anything, but when you are told something about a different group of people from your community for your entire life and you've never actually met that other community, why wouldn't you believe the things you've heard about them, right? I think that's true for
Right.
every
Yeah.
group, people who are in certain religions and stuff like that. It's like everybody around you is saying that this is the truth. So, like, of course you're going to believe that. Um, but
Yeah, there's definitely like the different, you have to kind of take a lot of things into account, there's like, you know you do have to kind of step back when somebody says something a certain way, and you hear it off to the side, even if you're not in that conversation. You can kind of think in your mind, and then you kind of have to make the decision and be like, what is their intention? Are they just not as educated, or is that something? Because you can't really come from a place of judgment
mm,
when you hear these things, like, and it's very difficult for me, especially because now that I'm on this like flip side, because I am a very judgmental person, like initially, like there's a weird thing in me that's built in that um likes to make these snap judgments based on, and it's not really about people in particular, it's about like situations
mm,
and things like that. Like I'll make a judgment like for like risk and safety, types of things, or is my brain ready to hit the fight or flight mode, depending on where I'm at. So it's a quick judgment on, what do I need to do, like my head is on a swivel, is what we used to say in the Marines, is like, your head's on a swivel. You're always aware of your surroundings because you never know. Like, and for a long time, I couldn't sit with my back to any entrance to like a restaurant, like I had to like I had to be facing the main entrance to see if anybody was going to come through, like I didn't want to have my back facing and just have somebody sneak up on me. And I've kind of gotten over that, mainly because I don't ever go out to eat, but there's a lot of things like that are still kind of ingrained that I'm still trying to overcome. But the judgment thing is difficult because, trying to look at a situation where I'm trying to decide if someone's intention is to be like bigoted or sexist or whatever, and there's the weird thing is like even movies and media that we've consumed over, throughout the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there was so much stuff in there that now we have to look at it and kind of take it with a grain of salt, because it's like, it may have never been okay in our, in reality, but like some things were kind of like, let's slide by with the sexism and all these things and the weird nuances of the way people just talked back in the day, like, and what we thought was funny, with like all this weird humor and stuff from like the 90s and stuff. And it's just like, this goes exactly along in line what we were talking about earlier with the whole like, with the cells, with the base code of the vaccine and like the booster adding on. I just showed my kids the movie Evolution the other last night, actually, with David Duchovny and Orlando Jones, and it was just it's a really funny, great movie, and it's silly, but there's a lot of kind of cringy dialogue in it that is that late 90s, early 2000s, and my daughter, who's like 12 years old, I'm sitting there kind of like, I don't know, but she loved the little aliens and stuff like that and how quickly they were adapting, evolving and stuff. And so I kind of just pointed those things out, I'm like, see, that's science. That's cool stuff. These things are like growing. And she's like, oh, that one's really cute. I'm like, yeah, see, it's cool. But then like avoiding the things when they were talking about the,
yeah, for sure. There's so much stuff that would not fly today in past media, but that's just the evolution of culture. So I would say to that, it's like, oh, you don't want your daughter to be exposed to that, but luckily she doesn't live in that world anymore. So the interactions that she has in the real world have been updated since then, luckily. So but it is really funny to think about, like,
well, hopefully,
what we thought was funny.
There is, I will say, and you've made the comment a few times about how things have changed, and I know you're in like Southern California. I'm in mid Missouri, so if you were to come here, I think it might be kind of like a time warp. I think you might feel, because even though I think a lot of the people around here are kind of evolved, there's also a huge section of people that are like farmers and people that have not left this area their entire lives in like over 80 years.
Well, I was actually born in the Midwest.
These people oh, that's right. That's right. You mentioned that. So, but it's just very weird, because when I go out and help these older people with their computers, like I hear some crazy shit and I'm just like, this would not fly, it doesn't fly with me. And I'm like, it's hard for me to, these old guys that are just with their accents and stuff. I'm like, I'm from Missouri originally, but I don't sound like these guys, because now I live more out in the country. I was born and raised in the city. So like, I'm a city kid by heart, at heart, but like now living out in the country, it's just like, oh my God.
That's so
it is crazy.
Yeah, no, I definitely could see that. I mean, definitely with the generation gap, it's totally different, regardless of where you live, I feel like, because right now, so I've been doing a lot of social dancing, so partner dancing, various styles, and a lot of that crowd is like an older crowd, and there are some newer, like younger, our generation people. starting to get into that now. But a lot of these older guys are like straight up perverts. And very few people in our generation at least that I've interacted with, are like that, because again, this stuff would not fly, you know. So it's really funny to see that, because yeah, I don't know. It's like, I mean, if it's some really really old person, it's not really worth the effort to fix it. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it is
Again,
funny.
and it's I hear a lot of stories too, because like, I mean, I don't work directly customer facing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of customers that are reoccurring, that sometimes I go to their houses to help them with things, because there's some people that are disabled and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But like there's some customers that come to me and they'll like drop things off and for me to work on, and they'll want to talk for like 15-20 minutes, and I'm like, I really don't have time. I gotta like get back. But they're just like, with it, the accent kind of gets me too, because when they're telling me these things that's wrong with the computer and they don't know the terminology, I'm just like, I'm trying to be the best like customer service type person as I can. And I'm just like, it's okay. It's going to be great. I'll fix it all up and you don't have to worry about anything. And, all this. And they're like, all right. Thanks a lot there, Matt. We'll see you later. And I'm like, okay. All right, man.
That's so funny. I can
We'll see you.
imagine.
Have a good day. And I know there's places, I know I kind of misspoke there when I was saying you're in Southern California, but there's places I have been in California that are out a little bit, that's almost identical to here, like with they almost, it's like, I'm like, you're in California, why do you have a Southern accent? There's some places that I'm like, it's just so weird to me. But I mean, the United States is so big, and if you talk to anybody who's not from here, who's from another country, or especially like the UK, it's like, it's minuscule, compared to this entire massive continent.
It really is more like each state is almost like its own, or I guess each region is really like its own country. So there are some places in the US where if you went there, you would not be able to understand their English. So, I mean, that's how I felt in the South sometimes. It's like, ooh, I don't know what you just said. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was in Nolens
I was there recently too. I was there last
different
spring,
places.
Yeah.
I was in, where's this other place? I was in Macon, Georgia. I think Macon, Georgia is along the south. It's kind of near the Gulf down there.
Yeah.
And this is when I was doing some exercises with my guard unit. And, like, first of all, I got to say, shout out to the Shrimp Po' Boys sandwiches that you get down there. Amazing. If they're still making them. I know they've been hit by hurricanes and all kinds of stuff. I hope that one place is still there that was making those, because that was like the highlight of my day when I was down there. But when I walked into the place, like you said, I had no idea what they were saying. I think they were trying to say welcome in, or come in and sit down, or come in and place an order or something. And I was just like, what? Like, what's going on? But you're right. Yeah. There is so much differences in a lot of different places across this wonderful country that we live in.
I mean, my mom has so many good stories about that, because English is her second language. She speaks it really well, but it's her second language. And she lived initially, when she first moved here, lived in California, and then they moved to the Midwest. And so she has all these stories about how, she went to a restaurant and she had food left over, and then the waitress was like, "Do you want a sack?" And my mom she didn't know what she was asking. She was like, "A what?" She's like, "Do you want a sack?" And my mom literally didn't know what she was saying, even though she knows what the word means, right? It's not like she couldn't understand it, but she just didn't understand what she meant by that. Because in the West Coast,
it was that context.
In the West Coast, we say doggy bag. We wouldn't say sack. So she was very.
Yeah, we say doggy bag here too.
She said it in Indiana.
I grew up hearing that.
Yeah. So that's what they said, and then like even soda.
Indiana is weird.
Indiana is so weird in the worst way.
Indiana and like Ohio, I think, or like, but
You know what it is?
Ohio has like one of my
It's
what?
so I assume Ohio is like this too, but Indiana is even though it's in the Midwest, it's culturally very, very much the South. And if you look at census
Mm.
records and stuff from the past, it has a disproportionate number of people who are originally from the South that now live there in that particular state. I think it's just a history thing. But
Oh wow,
yeah,
I did
so
not
it
know that.
is like technically the
I've
worst
only
state in the
stopped
Midwest.
through.
It sucks. Yeah, it's bad.
I think I have some friends that live there, but they live more up north by the
Okay.
coast of the Great Lake and
Yeah.
or Lake
I bet it's
Michigan,
nicer
and
there.
they're either closer to Michigan or closer to Illinois
Mhm.
side, or because I think you go right across and you can get into places like Champaign, Illinois. That's where my favorite band is from,
Mhm.
the band Hum.
Nice.
But and then you go a little north from there and hit Chicago. So
Mhm.
it's like just a lot of cool stuff in that whole area in that
Yeah,
region, you know. But
just not
you start getting
Indiana.
into deep into the woods in Indiana, and then it's like okay,
Well, it's like 85% corn,
but
I'm pretty sure. Um, but but yeah, culturally it's like really different from the Midwest actually. So, and I mean, like,
that is an interesting
apologies
note.
to any listeners from Indiana if there are any, but I was born there, so I think I'm allowed to say that. But I've never met anyone who's been there or is from there that's said nice things about it. So, um, yeah, I would say most people would probably
I have friends in
agree.
Ohio. There's
Ohio sounds kind of
and
nice.
there's like the Skyline Chili
Mhm,
and all that stuff. Like and there's good parts of Indiana too. Like the thing about Ohio though is that the I was just talking to a friend of mine who was actually from there.
mhm,
Um, One of the coolest TV shows from the early or late 70s, early 80s was WKRP
mhm,
in Cincinnati because they had like the best theme song. You know, the way
mhm,
it starts off and it's just like, oh, it's so groovy, you
mhm,
know, like, and then the show, the comedy, there, you know what? That show was almost more woke, I would say, than a lot of shows during that time period because I've been rewatching it lately and there's a lot of stuff that's going on that's like sexist
mhm,
and you know, all kinds of crazy stuff that you would hear and cringe at. But there's people in that, there's the characters in that show that actually stand up against that,
mhm,
you know, and say that, you know, well, what if he likes men? You know,
mhm.
what if he's a guy that likes men? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just stuff. And I'm like, wow, they were ahead of their time, definitely.
Mhm,
You know, like the writers of that show were like, okay, let's point out a lot of these things that are inequalities in our great society and you know try
flash
to
a
do
light on
better,
it,
you know.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can dig that. That's cool.
Yeah.
On that note, we're kind of over an hour.
Oh,
Let's take a quick break
okay.
and then we will come back.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Wormhole Manifest podcast. I am your host. I don't even think I introduced myself in the first part of this, but Wormhole Matt or just Wormhole on all my social media and stuff like that. Anyway, we are back. I am here with my friend Lisa,
Hello.
and we are we were talked about a ton of stuff in the first half, and that was a good time.
Mhm.
We covered everything from COVID and movies and bigotry and racism and like all these crazy
Ancient
all the current
aliens.
topics and headlines we see. Yeah, Asian aliens,
Yeah.
Alex Jones, just conspiracy theories. Like this is great reintroduction to our. I don't know if I'm going to make this a new season. I don't think I'm going to mess around with that. I'm just going to keep a you know
Mhm,
regular numbering order, consistent, continuous through. I may even go back and renumber all the old
mhm,
episodes and so it not confuse people. I had an idea originally. I was like, I want to do so many episodes, and that's like my introduction, season one. And then I was like, once I did that, I had this weird idea. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start season two, after this other episode, or I recorded one episode and then I'm like, the next episode I do, that's going to be the beginning of season 2 for this particular purpose that I had completely forgotten about, and I didn't write down why I wanted to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about it and racked my brain for weeks. Like, why did I want to make separate seasons?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a TV show. It's just a podcast, and every other podcast has just like, episode 800 and something. But I had some weird idea and some crazy theory on how it was going to work better, but who knows?
You still don't remember?
Anyway, here with Lisa, I still don't remember.
Oh, well. Anyway, yeah. I do know that one of the daily podcasts I used to listen to, as a joke, they would make a new season. 1 week would be a season. So like every Monday, it'd be like a new season. And their whole thing was like, their whole thing in the beginning, I think, was like, oh, well, we're going to make it so it looks like we're super, super successful because we have 48 seasons or whatever. But they're just like 5 episodes each. So,
jeez. Well, that's like a lot of TV shows I've noticed lately. I think the production budgets are so phenomenal compared to what they were back in like the 90s or even early 2000s, that like any TV show, if you go back into like the 80s, like one season of a TV show was at least 20, maybe even 30 episodes, depending on the length of the episode each. Then there was like mini series and all those other things that were separate, but those were like movie length. Each episode was movie length, like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And, there was only 6 or 12 episodes total in the whole mini series. But like a regular television series, one season was at least like, I don't know, 15 to 20, sometimes even 30 episodes. But nowadays, like the max is like 12,
yeah.
Most are 8 to 10, and I'm like, man, but I guess it's just the budgets, like they're not, and the technology, like especially sci-fi series, there's so much money goes into like the CG and the animation and the special effects and all that. I mean, plus the actors and inflation, all this stuff goes into that. But it's just crazy that like, we used to watch TV series and like one season took you a while to get through.
Yeah.
But now like a new season comes out, like you can expect to get maybe 8 episodes,
which is pretty surprising. Also
10,
in the age of like binge watching, like you would think that they would want to extend that stuff as long as possible. But yeah, I think you're right. Probably just that the whole atmosphere of that industry is totally different now that we have the internet and stuff. So I don't know exactly.
But, and streaming and, like probably not getting as much like DVD sales and things like that as they used to.
Yeah.
Because you can stream everything or download it and save it or whatever, digital content and all that.
Yeah. Because there's some old shows where I'm like, this season has 20 episodes. Like, what?
Yeah.
I guess it's like anime is still kind of like that, but
yeah, and even anime has either been like a series comes out and you're going to get 24 to 26 episodes per season, or maybe just the first season. But then it seems very common, and the ones I gravitate to are the ones that are 12 episodes, like. Because it's a short series. There's like no second season. It's just a short series, 12 episodes. That's all you get, and it's like, I can watch those or rewatch them a bunch and be like, I know what's going to happen. There's only 12 episodes, but it's just like, they tried to pack as much good content, I guess, or like good information or, animation and quality into that 12 episodes as possible. And it lasts, and they've been doing that for like maybe the past 10 years. Those like, there's tons of like 12 episode series that I'm like, those are like really great. But then there's also those ones that are like that are like 26 episodes, and it was just that one season. And I'm like, man, that's a really good show too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish they would make more of that,
Yeah.
you know, but then you read about it or try to research it, and it's like, no, there's no intention of coming back. It's just like, that's what you get,
Yeah.
you know.
You never really know.
There's not going to be any more Cowboy Bebop.
Right? Yeah.
We're going to get live action.
Oh my God.
We're going to make a live action series and make everybody cringe about it, you know.
Seriously.
But I did an episode about that a while back. I don't know if you heard that one, but
Maybe. That sounds kind of familiar, but I have not watched the live action. I don't watch the live action anything, so I just nope. But yeah, I mean, also I would say a lot of anime is really, really slow. Like some of the ones that have been on TV, it'll be like you wait a whole week for a new episode, and then in that new episode, all they do is like have dialogue. So that it goes both ways, I think.
Yeah. There's just recently I've started adding things that are simulcast, like things that are currently airing in Japan. I've started adding episodes to my Plex server so that I can kind of keep up. I never keep up with anything. The only one that I think the most recent one was a vampire one, Call of the Night. I had a subscription to the streaming service High Dive, and they had a simulcast section. So it's like you can watch like what's already been, like what's currently airing in Japan. So like I watched like the first like 3 episodes, but then I had to wait a week to watch episode 4. And then I had to wait another week to watch episode 5. And I did that. And that was the first time I had done that in like ever. Yeah. Really. I never had to wait that long, because everything that I have ever watched had already been done and out in Japan for like years, you know, and then finally got it, because I was into anime in the like mid to late 80s, and like you could not get anything new from Japan back then. Like there wasn't streaming, there wasn't any of this stuff. You had to meet somebody who had like imported a like a VHS copy of something until like the early 90s, when they could start getting laser discs. And then the laser disc, but then it took them like several months to translate everything so that we could have subtitles, and they had to use programs like Substation Alpha and things to put subtitles so that me, you know, and my friends could understand what was going on, because we didn't speak Japanese, and we're like, we want to see this new show, and like, you know, we have to wait for these people in this subtitle group to like put it together and translate it. And it was like, it's like, oh well. But then you just wait. You go to conventions in the mid 90s. I started going to anime conventions, and then that's when we had people that would show up and have all kinds of fan sub type stuff that had already been like a whole series of something had been translated and was ready, and all you had to do was go to someone's hotel room, kind of sneaky like, knock on the door, do the secret knock, and then like in your backpack you had a VCR, and then another bag you had a brick full of blank VHS tapes. And so like you'd go in the room and put your VCR on the stack of VCRs with your AV cables and plug them in and put in a tape and hit record, and you're like, just let it go for like 8 hours, you know.
Right.
It's like,
that's so funny.
Cool, I'm gonna have some cool stuff to watch now.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
so
it
wild
was
to
insane.
think about.
The fandom back then.
It's crazy.
But yeah, that's some crazy stuff back then. But nowadays, like, it's so easy to get caught up. You know, there's so many streaming services and whatnot.
Too many.
And like, I have my Plex server. I've got a wall. I don't know if you've ever looked at my Instagram, but like the wall in my garage is like this huge rack shelf of DVDs, and it's just like, I would say 90% of it is anime, and it's just like all the stuff I've collected over time. And then I have a storage unit a couple blocks away that it has like all my boxes of all the VHS tapes I've ever had. And I'm like, why do I keep this stuff? You know, It's like I'm really not a hoarder, you know, like I don't have like stacks of newspapers and magazines going back to like the 60s in my stairwell or anything, but like I do have a lot of VHS tapes and retro video games and stuff that's actually collectible. I have a lot of collections, but
well, those are things that actually had
anyway,
like meaning to you and were like your hobbies and stuff. It's not like random junk to you. So, you know, I think everybody has that kind of thing that they hoard, quote unquote, but it doesn't make you a hoarder. You just have things you don't want to get rid of. For a lot of us, it's clothes or shoes.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of shoes, Lisa?
I would say the average person would say yes, but I would highly and strongly disagree with them.
You can never have enough shoes.
I also don't think that it's not like an unreasonable number. Like I have one for basically like all the scenarios that I need, but there are a small number of people who have way more than what I have. So, but the average person and the majority of like people in this country probably have less than I do. Would be my guess. But I'm kind of a low level sneakerhead sorta. I don't really know a lot about like the designers and the whole market, because this is like an entirely it's its own stock market basically. So I don't know any of that stuff, but I do like sneakers and those designs and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm just learning about like vintage clothes markets and stuff. It's like a whole industry.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I didn't know it existed.
I've taken pictures of some of my old T-shirts from back in the 90s, and I've had people I've taken pictures and posted them on Instagram. No tags, no hashtags or anything like that. But people have found those pictures and sent me direct messages offering me like $400 for like a T-shirt. You know, they're like, I'm like,
yeah. It's a whole thing.
Man, I'm like, and I'm thinking about it, you know, I'm like, do I really need that shirt? You know, it's cool. It's part of my past. I remember all kinds of events that I went to wearing that shirt, but it's like, I could really use the money, you know? Like, do I really need that? Same thing with like skateboard decks. I have a bunch of skateboard decks, or not a bunch. I have two that are like almost 30 years old and they're like brand new mint condition. And I've had someone offer me money for them. And I'm like, I'm really considering it. Like, you know, like, because for one, it would have to be like, this person is a collector of skateboard decks. Yeah. So like, I know that the board is going to this person who is a collector, and they have like, you know, their whole house is dedicated to like all their skateboard collection, you know, and it's like, it would be going to a good home, and I could really use the money, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'd be helping them out, and I know it's going to a good home, and then I'd be helped out in the process. But do I just keep it hanging in my stairwell, you know, on the little bracket that I got set up, and it looks cool, and I walk by it and I'm like, oh, I remember you. Yeah. It's like, yeah. But, you know, I'm reaching that point in my life. I'm like, do I really, I would say, let's kind of let's veer the conversation off. Like, I would say in this point and stage in my life, with my use of psychedelics to help my basically uncurable depression and anxiety and other mental health issues. Like, I had reached a point where I was like, I need to go think outside the box and do something different than what I was expecting, because all the meds I was on weren't helping. All the therapy I was doing, everything was not going very well in those departments. So like, I was like, I'm going to try something different. And so, you know, I did, and I'm here now, and I'm like living proof that these substances are, you know, can work for those scenarios. So now at this point, I'm looking at all these things that I've kept and hoarded my whole life. And I'm like, let go, man. Just let go. Like, it's a weight on me because I'm keeping all this stuff, you know? Yeah. And it's like, I could be helping my kids. I can be helping other people with like their collections or whatever. Like, I need to venture out and look at those. Before, I didn't look at that stuff. I'm just like, this is my legacy. I'm keeping this
Yeah.
stuff because I thought it was cool back then,
Yeah.
and like whatever, but it's like
Mhm.
it doesn't matter in the long run. It's not like I'm going to be going back to the ancient alien things. I'm not going to be some pharaoh someday and have a big giant pyramid to
Yeah.
like put all my shit
Yeah.
in, and it's going to be like a giant pyramid that's like a storage
Mhm.
unit.
Yeah.
Like this is my pyramid storage unit. It's got all my cool shit in. Like that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So like I may as well start digging through my comic book collections and being like, do I really need this?
Mhm.
It's not worth that much, but somebody else might like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then start paying it forward and helping other people. And,
Mhm.
I think that's the main
'Cause some of
goal in
that
my
stuff
whole
would really
healing
yeah,
journey
some of
with
that stuff
psych.
would really make other people happy. You never know what thing you have is the missing piece in somebody's collection, right? So, yeah, it would make you really, happy,
Yeah,
and it would lift you up to
exactly.
give that to somebody who really cared, so mhm. And I
Yeah,
see that kinda
exactly.
attitude a lot in with these, collector communities and stuff. So, it's pretty interesting. But yeah, that's a how I know that you were already doing, psychedelics as part of, treatment. Is that something that you continue to do without any change? Is it a consistent thing?
I would say it's like a piece of the
Oh,
puzzle,
okay.
like in the whole the grand scheme of things. Like there's a lot of work involved in healing. Like when
Mhm.
when I look at it, I'm glad this is cool. Like it's kind of flipped. Like I'm instead of me interviewing you, you're asking
Well, I'm
me
really
the questions,
curious,
and
yeah.
that hasn't really happened much. Well, the thing is that like I had kind of reached my wit's end, and when you get to that bottom of the barrel, kind of, how do I get out of this situation? You start looking into anything that might help, and it's like I wasn't ready to give up. I mean, there was times I was ready to give up. I won't. I'll gladly admit
Mhm.
that. Like I was ready to give up, but like I knew I didn't really want
Yeah.
to, you know. But I had started looking into other stories. Basically, like I was doing research. I went down a couple rabbit holes into like Reddit and things like that, and people talking about microdosing
Mhm.
and things like that. And it was like um, I started reading all these really good, like positive stories of people in similar situations as me, and it was like I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do to get started with something like this? And I even talked to my therapist at the time, who was basically prescribing me all kinds of like medications and stuff like
Yeah.
this, and nothing was helping.
Mhm.
Um, and I let me think. I think basically one thing led to another, where I basically was like, okay, I stopped seeing one psychiatrist at one point, and I was like, I want to go to the VA because I was I'd reached a breaking point basically,
Mhm.
and I was like, something has to change because everything in my life at that point was kind of like culminating into this huge, like, big, massive, chaotic ordeal,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, if I don't change what's going on, then everything else is like everything was kind of like hindering on like what I did next,
Mhm.
and my kids were suffering for it, my wife was suffering, and friends and people that cared about me were all like wondering what am I going to do, and telling me I need to do something. And so like I did, I stopped going to that doctor, and then I started going. I'm a veteran,
Mhm.
so I was like, why don't I start going to the VA? I know they have like a mental health kind of like or counseling or psychologist or something.
Mhm.
um, Let me go see them and see what they say, because I think right now what I really need to do is get off of all this medication that I'm on. But I know that I can't just do it all willy
Yeah.
nilly and cold turkey, because the the side effects and the withdrawal symptoms would probably kill
Mhm.
me at that point. And I'm like, I want to do it
Mhm.
safely and get it managed by a doctor and a professional. So I went to the VA and I told them all that, and I told them everything else that had gone on. And they were like, okay, yeah, like we can. it sounds like you're not, all these things aren't helping you anyway, and you really shouldn't. I had like serotonin syndrome once, and that was
Rough.
like
Yeah.
made me sick for like a couple weeks, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Like, don't mix all those medications, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, like for about a year, I would say I very gradually weaned off and reduced the dosage of different medications and was able to get off of several. Um, the thing I will tell people that I did do that helped, but I would not recommend, was that I had started drinking alcohol again
Mm-hmm.
after about 3.5 years of not drinking at all. Because before I was an alcoholic and I drank every single day. And I needed something to offset the anxiety that I was feeling while I was weaning off these
Mm-hmm.
medications. So like it helped me
Mm-hmm.
and it gradually helped, but like I didn't do it that much. It was just like every other day,
Mm-hmm.
have a couple drinks and wean off the medication so that the withdrawals wouldn't hit me as bad when I was reducing the dosages. So it was just really crazy. It's I feel like I'm dragging this out. It's a long
Oh
story,
yeah.
but getting up to the psychedelic portion of it, the psychedelic was I had been doing all this research the whole time and talking to people in different Reddit forums and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, psilocybin, the mushrooms, like it's a natural thing. It's part of what has basically helped humans evolve since thousands of years ago, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe even longer. Um, but like, I was like, that sounds really cool. And I read a couple books about it. And then eventually I got my hands on some because it's very difficult to find them where I live because stuff's obviously not legal. Um, and the turning point was I did about 3.5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms one night in November of 2019. I think
Okay.
was that right before the pandemic
Yeah.
started?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and 2019, it was like November. Like I don't remember the exact date, but I have a little trip report that I wrote out afterwards. But that event, that journey that I took that night, unlocked some doors in my mind that I haven't seen in so long that it just blew me away. Like, I mean, it was like I felt alive again for the first time in probably 20 something years. Like I felt like myself, and I had worked through so many issues with a lot of my PTSD stems from losing a lot of people that I cared about because I've lost a lot of family members. I mean, mom, dad, uh, three brothers, and a lot of very close friends that I've lost throughout my life. And they all, they were all things that I just didn't deal with at the time. So like when you don't deal with that grief, it builds up. So like many years later, it kind of like hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's like, wow, I just didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't deal with it at the time, but I was really inside, like kind of deteriorating.
Mm-hmm.
It was creating this big, huge hole
Yeah.
that I was ignoring for so long. So that trip, that mushroom trip that night opened up a lot of that. And it basically showed me and taught me that like I don't need to hold on to those things, and it opened so many doors and pathways in my mind that like I was seeing things from when I was a child, like that were like some things not so
Mm-hmm.
good, some kind of traumatizing things. But like at the same time, I was like, there's more to my trauma than what I've ever even thought, and those things that were there was just like, it made me realize that, okay, so I'm not just a fucked up person who I'm not lazy, and I've been diagnosed bipolar, and ADHD and OCD or OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality
Mm-hmm.
disorder was one of them that a psychiatrist said. That's why I was saying, like, in the first part of this podcast with the whole Alex Jones things, it's like I could have easily become one, like somebody like that, but I have more integrity, I think, maybe than, I care more about people and about myself to lie and do all that stuff. But yeah. So anyway, the whole thing about it is microdosing. What I ended up doing was I knew microdosing was something to kind of help maintain the. When I mentioned earlier, it was a part of the puzzle. Was psychedelics are a part of the puzzle? Is that it's a tool to be used um, in a very respectful and caring way towards the substance. Um, it's not like using any other substance. I mean, I also use I was smoking a lot of weed
Mm-hmm.
for a while, many years ago, and that didn't help
Yeah.
really. I mean, it kind of did when I was on all the medication, but when I got off the medication, I found myself getting more paranoid and feeling kind of
Yeah.
schizo. And I was like, I need to stop doing that. Like, I don't feel very well. More recently, I've started using the Delta 8, which is kind of like another part of the structure of the THC
Mm-hmm.
and all that plant medicine,
Yeah.
whatever. But
Okay.
um and that it's just, you utilize. But the main thing I think is what started was the research and hearing other people's stories and the success stories of people with PTSD getting treated with things like MDMA,
Mm-hmm.
that substance. I've also tried that, and that was very helpful. The afterglow of that, um, I don't really call it a trip because it's not a classic
Yeah.
psychedelic. It's something. It's a bit different, and there's plenty of YouTube videos to learn about that. But MDMA, you can get that whole thing and go months afterwards with this afterglow and kind of post process the experience, and it really helps. There's tons of other research. There's tons of research going on out
Yeah.
there with Johns Hopkins and all that with psychedelic research, and we're kind of in that whole psychedelics
Oh
renaissance
yeah, for
right
sure.
now.
Because when I was in college, we were
Where
learning about the studies that were happening at that time and the ones that had already happened. I would say because this would be like the 2010s. So at that time,
hmm,
it was still like really difficult to be able to do research on any of this stuff in a clinical way. And they only
yeah,
had a
yeah,
handful of studies, but they were
the
all
government
pretty.
limited all
Mhm.
that for so
But the
long.
studies that they did have, because so my specific major in college was, it would be considered like pharmacology. So actually, like the specialized stuff that I learned was about
Okay,
how drugs affect the body and the brain and perception and stuff like that was what I was specifically studying. And yeah,
that's
so one of
cool.
my classes, it was a class on perception. So basically, how your brain takes in information and makes you perceive the world around you because it's all just a construct of your brain ultimately.
Mm,
But there, we did a whole section on psychedelics, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about
oh
your
wow,
experience because even from like an academic or whatever standpoint, it's described the exact same way that you just explained it. You like start out, you have like a phase that certain phases that you go through, and ultimately from a scientific standpoint, it's because certain parts of your brain are acting or reacting in different ways than they normally would, and a lot of that
yeah,
will.
or almost like
Mhm.
reactivating
Yeah, and
too.
so that's why a lot of
Yeah,
people do experience things like flashbacks or re-experiencing past experiences and confronting trauma that maybe in their normal life they've suppressed. And in that state of being under the influence, their brain is not suppressing it anymore. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about your experience that way because it absolutely makes sense from a science standpoint. The different chemicals that are flooding your brain when it's being uninhibited in that way. So back then they did talk about studies of how MDMA could help patients that had PTSD, and a lot of it had to
yeah,
do with the different there's like more serotonin being released and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes with patients with PTSD,
Right.
we're
Right.
seeing deficient amounts of certain neurotransmitters. So it's helping chemically, but it makes sense that it would help you mentally, emotionally, metaphysically, right? Because your memories and your
Yeah. Yeah.
experiences are all part of your physiology.
Yeah. And when we're like, especially like, not just me, but like the stories I've read about like these troops, you know, these military guys who have been in these very traumatic situations and they've come back from wartime and whatever, and they have these like lifelong symptoms of PTSD. They're like out of the military, they're like can't find work, they're like the family life is you know miserable and all kinds of crazy stuff. But then they go in for a treatment and they start to work out some of these things that they've been withholding. And it's like maybe it's like a nature versus nurture kind of thing. Like our training teaches us to like suppress the bad things that, you know, and make up reasons why things went the way they did or whatever, you know. And so we make up scenarios and all this stuff. But like the thing with substances like MDMA or even with psilocybin mushrooms, well, you know, they call like the mushrooms, they're like teachers. Like one of the strains of, or not strain, but like one of the genetics of one of the mushrooms that has psilocybin is called golden teachers. And I think that like other older, you know, more not ancient cultures, but like more older cultures say, or shamans say, that they're called teachers because they show you things that you need to know and need to learn about yourself. And that's what I experienced in my one trip with mushrooms, was like it showed me that I didn't need to hang on to all of these things, like my father passing and my mom passing and my brothers and all these different things and different friends. Like it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault that I wasn't there with them when they needed me and things like that. Like it just all, it made it so much easier to process. It made it like to where, you know, I could look at it as like the, it just made more sense in that tone. It was like showing me that things happened and I'm not to blame and I don't have to hold this above myself. Like I can process it and I can grieve and I can process any emotion because it's all normal. All these emotions are completely normal and I don't have to like feel bad for feeling bad. And that's when it hit me too, that it was like, it's okay to not be okay. Like I've heard people say that in the past and it was like, you know, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. You know, it's okay. Like, yeah, you have bad days, bad day is bad day. But like, you know, you don't need to like blast it out to everybody. But sometimes you needed to say, fuck, today is not a good day.
Yeah.
And that is okay. And you need to take your time because we all need rest.
Yeah.
We all need to chill out and heal.
Mm-hmm.
And healing is the only way we get on with the rest of our life. Is like, we can't, like, if we're wounded internally, and that was another thing that popped in, I think during that trip even too, was that if someone has a different mindset or someone has, like on the spectrum with autism, like my son has, like it's not a deficiency or anything like that. It's just different. Yeah. It's different than what and then I started thinking maybe I am on the spectrum. I'm on some kind of spectrum. Mm-hmm. Like everybody is on whatever. Yeah. And then I started thinking of like wavelengths and all these other scientific things. I'm like, you know, there's all these different patterns and there's like, you know, light and the sunlight can be measured in different ways as far as like particles or waves and all these things, you know, like the whole, I have another hobby of being in the like physics and things like that. And, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, sunlight can be measured as particle or waves depending on the observer, you know, with the double slit test and all these things. And I'm like, man, this is all very crazy and interesting how all this is coming to me in one psilocybin mushroom trip. And but the thing, it didn't really hit me until probably a couple months later. And the thing that hit me during that time was like, I need to take time for myself. And so that's why it's the part of the puzzle. It's another tool in the toolbox of maintaining our best mental health. Is there's other things we need to do. Like, and when I said we need to take breaks, we need to like rest and heal, like that is very important. So when I started to do regular meditation, I started to really notice the changes in my everyday, and I tried meditation before that trip and it didn't click. I was like, I didn't
It's
get
like
it.
the
I was like,
intention
it's not
wasn't
working
there
for
yet.
me. I can't just sit there. I can't sit there. But like after that trip, I was like, this means something. Like if I'm focusing on my breathing, like I can sit there, and if my mind and thoughts start to stray, as long as I return to the breathing and return to the breath and just continue that cycle, I could just sit there for the longest time. And when I like stop, and there's various different forms of meditation, everybody can research that, whatever best suits them. But the ones that worked for me were the ones where they did kind of have you return to, like, if your thoughts stray, return to your breathing and like, just focus on the breathing in and out. And there's usually a beat that's going along with it. And like I would sit there and have some really deep thought processes, but like I didn't want to get lost in that rabbit hole or rabbit trail or whatever. And then I returned to breathing. And then after, whatever, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I've even done an hour here and there. And it was just like, you feel like a different person almost when you come out of it. And it's just like, okay. And then I realized that after many times trying that, and getting on a cycle and setting up a schedule to do that stuff, I've been really out of it lately. I can admit that I haven't been doing my regular meditation like I was. So that has been affecting me, and my sleep's been messed up and all kinds of stuff. So I find myself in old habits, but I know that it's not unfixable.
Yeah. It's the difference.
It's just a matter of like, getting back in the habit, I guess, And I think I'm really due for another macro dose psychedelic experience coming up pretty soon. Because I like to say that there's no such thing as a bad trip. It's just the ones that no such thing as a bad trip, just the ones that you need, or, you learn the things that you need to, but they're, if anybody's listening to this, be very cautious if you do decide to try any kind of psychedelic substances. I won't push any kind of like information like that, because you do have to be careful and know what your past is and know what your history of health and medication and all that stuff,
especially if there's like
and
history
definitely
of
like seek guidance before doing
if
hand.
there's a history of mental illness, like
If there's history of mental illness,
particularly such as schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder, I've heard are particularly vulnerable to having psychotic breaks if they take psychedelics. So it's really a shame that it's not more readily looked at or available in the medical field. I think it will be eventually, because the data is pretty clear.
It will be. I hope so.
Because if you could do it in the safety of a doctor's office, I think it could really help a lot of people. And as someone who's also been on a lot of antidepressants in the past, I just don't see any way that like you could argue that it wouldn't have any benefit, because some people really react poorly to these prescription drugs. I mean, they help a lot of people, but if they don't help, then why should we just say, well, then you're out of options? Because there's something here that clearly could be an alternative.
Right.
So, it's just, the psychotic break thing is the main danger.
The thing that, the thing that jumped out to me was that, and I've talked about this on other podcasts with different friends that are really, really knowledgeable about this subject, was that like in ancient cultures, not just ancient cultures, that was one of my episodes, there's, people living in like South America, and they use like mushrooms and things like that, and it's like a regular part of their um, culture,
Mhm.
you know, and it's a not just culture, but like it's a part of the whole process of their living, because they don't have all this like day in day out office
Yeah.
job type stuff, you know, like they're in a community, they're in like a village, and they all play a part that's important, and it's like all their lives matter to each other and everybody does their part. But if one person starts to feel a little different, and even I've said this before and I've heard it before, the Dalai Lama, you know, had said one time when asked about things like depression, anxiety, he said, I don't know those terms. Like, what does that mean? You know, like, because in that culture, in that society, like they are all about working on themselves and like reaching enlightenment or whatever, you know, like other things. It's more in depth than that. I can't blanket statement saying whatever, but like you know, these cultures that are much older than like modern society and office jobs and day in, day out, clocking in, clocking out of like factories or whatever we're doing. Like these are the things I think that are even making the stress and the trauma of our daily lives like a lot worse,
Mhm.
because we know we have a job that we have to do, and we have to like do our job to make money to pay bills, and you know, the endless cycle goes on. But in those more like indigenous cultures, in those areas, that they have these lives that they know what's important to them, and they do their regular, you know, regular ceremonies and things like that that keep them healthy and keep them going and doing what they need to do. And it's like, if you look back thousands of years, like there wasn't a such thing really as depression and anxiety, and if you did, it was like the whole community would come together to help treat that one person who was feeling bad for whatever reason. And it was like, we don't get that kind of caring and nurturing today,
Yeah.
because everything is so selfish
Yeah.
and spread out, you know, and it's like we're all in our own little modules of homes that we call our life, or, you know, our life savings or our mortgages or whatever. And it's like, you go home to that, but it's like, instead, you know, how different would it be if we had a community that cared for
Yeah.
us? You know, instead of just going home to our house, we went home from our job to like a community of people, and we all got together around a bonfire. You know, like it just seems more like, and we just like listen to music and like hang out and talk about our
Yeah.
day, and like, you
Some
know,
people probably live
how
like
more
that.
uplifting would that be?
Yeah. And I think like,
I
you know, but
know.
like
And
the
it's
ancient
just
cultures, a lot of them would see things like like schizophrenia, and obviously they didn't call it that back then, and they didn't view it the same way we do.
right, right.
They viewed it as like a gift, right? An insight, whereas we view it as a mental illness. And so in a way, I kind of feel like
True, true, very.
while this while understanding the science of those kinds of disorders has helped a lot of people in modern time function, in a way, it has also kind of made it this cold thing that is more difficult to empathize with. I think is kind of like what you were saying, where
Yeah.
back then maybe they would come
There's that
together
stigma.
to say, like, maybe, you know, however they viewed this person, they would try to figure it out as a community. And there were some cultures where they wouldn't try, you know, they would be like, okay, you have to leave and stuff. But in our society,
Right,
in our
yeah.
society, we might see somebody like, oh, they have schizophrenia. That's a disorder of the brain. And then that's all we see of it. There's like that compassion of
Yeah.
like trying to understand their experience is not there, because we're like, oh, well, it's just a medical thing. Like, you know? So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely a part of it. Because I think a lot of people do live in communities, but
Yeah.
the way that those communities are viewing each other is very different in the modern age. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a very good point. Like that's you know, the thing about me with my mental health issues that basically got me uh I didn't get kicked out of the military or anything bad like that. I got a very good honorable discharge. Not even a discharge. I was retired. I was medically retired because my commander saw that I was having issues and I couldn't perform up to the standards of whatever. I mean, like when you're like almost 20 years in and they're like, what, and they ask you, what do you want to do? Do you want to like medically retire or do you want to try to stay in and work it out? You know? And I was like, I don't see this working out because I hated my job anyway. I won't lie, but I was like, I just, you know, but they understood. But the problem was initially when I started having issues, like they didn't understand. It was not very compassionate. It was, they didn't empathize, you know, they were just like, basically pull yourself up by your bootstraps and, you know, put your big boy pants on and come to work and do what you're supposed to do. And that's toxic, man. Like that's not how you help somebody deal with a hard time. And so, you know, and I've seen it. I've seen it with many other people previous to me that were having issues that it didn't get handled right. And unfortunately, like some of those people ended up either taking their own lives or, you know, dying of other causes. But you know, those things affected me in ways too, because I was like, I don't want to be like that, you know, and all these other people out there, they're going to look at me like, just like that person, you know? And I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that person. I mean, yeah, there's something wrong with them, but they're not getting the help they need. You know, that needs to change.
Yeah. They weren't given a
you know,
chance.
and I was so pissed off sometimes. Yeah. It's terrible. So I was fighting that fight internally all the way up to the day that I ended up getting out. And then it wasn't for years after that I ended up getting the help that I needed.
Yeah.
And I basically had to do that myself. You know, I had to take matters into my own hands.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the whole thing, if anybody out there is listening to this and they want to learn about the studies and research that's being done to help treat mental health issues with psychedelics, you can look into the research. There's one in Canada called MAPS. MAPS is a good reference for a lot of different things, and it's the multidisciplinary. Dang it, I'm trying to point out things, but I don't have the right links up. Anyway, look up Maps of Canada in reference. Just do a Google search and reference the psychedelics, and it can tell you all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of other things. There's double blind. There's tons of Reddit forums. There's a YouTube channel called Psyched Substance if you just want to learn about the substances, the different types of psychedelics out there, because there's a big difference between like crack cocaine and traditional psychedelics, things that are basically non-addictive. And that's the big things. That's the big difference between psychedelic substances and other types of medication or substances or processed types of medications and whatnot.
And that's all based on like the type of chemicals that they react with. So if you're dealing with a drug that is, say, like dopamine, you know, related, there's probably going to be a higher chance of addiction potential. And that's, if I remember correctly, that's why a lot of psychedelics don't have that, because their main neurotransmitter, I think, is serotonin. So, which has a much lower addictive effect.
Interact with that 5-H.
5-HTP
receptor, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's like when you go on a psychedelic trip, let's say LSD is one of the oldest, you know, like synthesized type of psychedelics. Like when Albert Hoffman discovered that on his little bicycle trip, or before that, he had synthesized it many years before that, then started redoing and trying to find other known or uses for it. LSD, that's a whole great story to look into. The thing is that makes it non-addictive is because when you take a trip on LSD, it's not like a quick high, you know, like you're not getting this high and you want to like keep that high going. A lot of times you start tripping and like 8 hours, you know, 10 hours go by and you're still tripping balls. and like 12 hours you start coming down, you're like, okay, I do not want that to keep going on for much longer. Like it's not like Coke where you do a quick hit and like you're up for like a good hour or two and then you're like, oh, I need to do another bump. It's not like that at all. LSD as a classic psychedelic, you do not want to be tripping for longer than the duration of that experience. And then a lot of times when you get done, you need a good several months to process everything that happened during that experience. That little journey, that psychedelic journey, you are going to be processing that. You'll be on this different level for a long time after that. So just take your time, do some meditation, process all the things that happened during that experience, and
also there's a
good.
really rapid tolerance buildup with psychedelics, so that's why even if you did some and then did some more right after, you probably wouldn't feel anything. So that's
Exactly.
another reason that the addiction potential is low.
I think it's with something like LSD, it's like the tolerance is instant almost. Like as soon as it hits your system, the tolerance gets spiked out. Like, and so like, even if you took like, let's say like an hour after you dropped like 100 micrograms or something like that, if you dropped another 100 micrograms, all it's going to do is maybe extend the time period. Like it might take your trip from 12 hours to like another couple hours after that, but it won't increase the high or anything like that. It's just going to basically just drag out the time period that it takes for it to work through your system. So there is no extra like lift or boost, to that high that you get. And it's not even a high in itself. That's what I like about it, is like, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes I think, cause I was for a while, cause I had back problems and I've had 2 lower spine surgeries, and that sciatic pain, that chronic pain I was dealing with, my only relief basically was drinking alcohol and popping like Vicodin or Percocets. So I got kind of hooked on that for a while. And that was a bad deal. Bad. Like, don't recommend that deal. But like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, I kind of want that quick fix, like I want to feel good for like a few minutes or a few hours or whatever, but there's really nothing that can give you that kind of quick, fix, except something that is possibly, harmful and addictive.
And a lot of times,
so,
like with Vicodin,
that's why like the things like psychedelics,
with Vicodin, it's like a lot of people become addicted, not necessarily just from the craving of the relief, but because coming off of it will make you sick. So it's 2 double-edged swords in a way. Yeah. So that's rough.
Like, so that was like, I left that part out even before, because like at the same time that I was dealing with all the loss of people, I also had like a herniated disc in my first it was L4S, or I forgot what disc it was. It was L4S1 or L3, and lower spine, that very bottom part. But I had I had a herniated disc, and then a year and a half later, I got another one from just like working out and stuff. And that it was just like, I was in like constant pain, and it was like, so that add chronic pain to like depression, anxiety, and like grief and all these other things that were going on. And it was like, I was just like building up this whole big thing of like this big storage of like mental health, like fuckery.
Plus there's a clear
like
connection between your mental health and your physical health. So if one or both are not in doing well, it's going to affect the other. So like your mental health probably made your physical pain worse.
Okay, everyone. This right here, after what you just heard, is where I had lost my internet connection as I described in the intro to this episode. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a wrap up here. Lisa wasn't able to come back after that, unfortunately, but we will get her back on the show again sometime soon because we have lots more to discuss. But I want to thank her for coming on to the show. So Lisa, thank you very much. If anybody out there would like to know where to find her, she is on Twitter at Psy_Cadillac or PSY_CADILLAC. You can find her on there. I didn't get her permission to list her other socials, but yeah, she's on there and can reach out if you want to know some things about molecular biology and vaccines and antibodies and all that other cool scientific cool stuff. So anyway, thank you very much, Lisa, for coming on. I look forward to having you back again. I would like to give a special shout out to that Knowledge Fight podcast, which I intend to listen to here soon, and check out a few episodes because it does sound hilarious. I will put the link to their show in the description of the episode. Another special shout out goes to my friend Mario Mora, who was on the very last episode, episode 28, I believe. Lately he's been going through a lot with like some health issues. He did end up getting COVID, and he's been sitting out of a lot of the conventions and things that normally bring in his income anyway. So if anybody he and a bunch of other crazy stuff of basement flooded and various things like that, and his refrigerator went out of all things, and it's just been one thing after another, it seems. So if anybody can help him out by going to his online store, which he used to have at Etsy, but now has recently switched. And if you follow him on social media, you can get those links and everything. I will list them in the description of the show as well. You can find him on Twitter at The Artisan Rogue. Also on Instagram as Artisan Rogue, and TikTok, The Artisan Rogue. And I think his website where you can buy his comic book, Ardor, which is really good. I'm looking forward to the next issue of that. And also any of his prints. He has lots of prints for sale too. I've got a few hanging up in my living room, actually. They're framed. They're really nice, very good quality. So check that out. His store is artisanrogue.gumroad.com, and that's where you can purchase some prints. So definitely do that and help out a fellow artist out there. So some more things I want to mention. If you are into gaming live streams or live streams in general, I would like to invite you to my very own Twitch channel for some occasional live streams, whether it be PC gaming or even retro console games, or even some newer modern console games. I do all that on there sometimes, occasionally, not as much as I probably should or as much as I want to. I have a very elaborate setup, and I've been doing this for about 5 years. So it's something I want to do more of, but just with everything else that's going on, it's hard to make the time to just sit and play some games. But anyway, the time that I do the most streaming is around November timeframe, when I do my marathon stream to help raise money for the local children's hospital charity event that's called Extra Life for Kids. It's one of the gaming's biggest charity events, and is reached this year or last year, 2022, reached a major fundraising milestone. And there's still time to help out if you want to donate to that. There's links on all the streams and everything, but yeah, it's really cool. Every November, and beyond, gamers look to give back to their community by partaking in Extra Life, and it's one of the largest fundraising initiatives associated with the games industry or other geekier pursuits. The organization benefits the Children's Miracle Network hospitals across North America, and I've talked about it in previous episodes, like with my good friend Big Rob 029, who is also a big streamer. He's the one that got me into it. And many of these facilities are currently struggling to deal with the late stages of the pandemic and raising numbers of hospitalizations related to respiratory syncytial virus, RSV, on top of the usual operations. The event's official game day was held on November 5th, and the total annual donations surpassed the $9 million mark by the end of that weekend. So, yeah, however, donations remain open until December 31st. Okay, December 31st, but it's going to start up again here pretty soon. So there's plenty of time to donate for the next one. So go check out, or to find out more about Extra Life, go to www.extra-life.org. And you can find out all that. And if you want to tune into my streams, which I try to do sometimes weekly, maybe once a month lately, it's been kind of odd, but it's www.twitch.tv/wormhole42. And that you just can go on there anytime and look at past streams. You can see highlights from my past streams. You can view them either on Twitch site itself. I also try to export those past streams to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@wormhole42. That has all my past gaming stuff and the stuff from the marathons for the charity, playing games for like 24 hours, or sometimes I do 12-hour stints. But it's crazy. It's fun too, and it's definitely for a good cause. Now, as far as the podcast is concerned, there are many things coming. I already have a YouTube channel set up for this, for future episodes, and to be populated with past episodes, possibly, where you get video and audio. And so I'm also hoping to put some other videos and content on there as well. That YouTube channel. Wait, I just mentioned the YouTube, but I'm also working on getting a Patreon creators page. I have it almost set up. It's just not ready to publish yet. I want to kind of put some of the, basically it's a creators page, and then I can hopefully start getting some of the exclusive content that I've been sitting on for some stuff I've been sitting on for years, posted in there in hopes to earn some funds to help me keep producing this high quality content for you all. If you enjoy it, I would really appreciate it to be able to keep doing this. Anyway, I think that's about it for now. So thanks for listening and supporting this show and my content. It is very much appreciated. Now, be sure to stay tuned. Oh, if you want to find info about the podcast, you can go to linktr.ee/wormhole_manifest. And that has all the links to the social media. If you want to email me, wormholemanifest@gmail.com. And then I'm also on Twitter @wormfestpod. So now stay tuned after the ending theme song for a little surprise. I've got some outtakes for you. But anyway, until next time, take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. Because if you're not here, you can't do anything. So love and peace, my friends. Take care. We'll see you next time. Well, I think you cut out. Are you there?
Bloop, bloop.
Uh-oh. Froze up. Is it going?
Hi, kitty. Glenda.
If you can hear me, I'm going to stop the recording and
there's Glenda.
We will continue again. I know mine's recording. Yours is still 85% upload. Mine's 97%. But hold that thought. Oh no, my internet went off. What? Your internet has disconnected. Recording continues normally for everyone else. When a participant's internet disconnects, the rest of the studio is not impacted. Everything seems okay, or refresh. I'll click refresh. Let's see. What happened? That's kind of crazy.
I guess this is what they call B-roll. It got disconnected. You managed to not bother me the whole time. Good job. Meow. Well, Matt's internet went out. Oh, I guess I should do this. All right. Matt's internet went out, and it looks like he's not quite able to get it back working. So I think that means we're probably going to end this here for now. But I would not be surprised. At least it would be nice to do another conversation. And sorry, my cat's going crazy. To have another conversation soon, because we're talking about a lot of cool stuff. So, yeah. I don't know how he usually ends this show, but it's my show now. Just kidding. Let's see. Should I? Or let's see. Just let me know if when I should. Actually, we'll do it this way. Let me know how to stop the recording and make sure it gets uploaded. No, we'll do it this way. Let me know what to do next. Oh my gosh, my cat. Hey. Because I want to make sure that this doesn't just get lost, so I think I could probably just stop the recording and then make sure it finishes uploading. Let's see. About to find out. I should have just pretended to be like a radio host that has to tell stories all day long. I don't think I'm cut out for that. Glenda, stop messing up all the blankets. Let's see.